You're streaming CBS News Bay Area.
How the Trump administration wants your help to report anything that makes America look bad. Plus,
we're seeing this as an attempt to circumnavigate, the authority of the Park Service to tell these stories, to tell accurate history.
Plus, we will introduce you to a Bay Area woman who is on a mission to protect kids from predators. How she is literally writing the book Unawareness.
Online predators call you things like pretty and beautiful to get more pictures of you.
And how the San Francisco Gay Men's Chorus is refusing to stay silent as budget cuts could put their mission in jeopardy. Thanks for joining us this Tuesday. I'm Ann Makovic. We're going to have those stories and lots more coming up right after our news headlines. The fight over the deployment of the National Guard in California heads back to a San Francisco courtroom today. Governor Newsom arguing that President Trump did not have the authority to send troops to Los Angeles during the anti-ICE protests. Last week, a federal judge agreed and ordered President Trump to return control of the Guard to the governor. But hours later, the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals halted that decision. Today, that three-judge panel is taking up the dispute. President Trump spoke out about the ICE raids while on board Air Force One, and he doubled down on his push to prioritize deportations in Democrat-run cities like Los Angeles and New York, and once again blamed his predecessor.
They let prisoners in, they let gang members in, drug dealers in, mentally insane into our country. No, we're going to get them out. There are far more in the inner cities, Democrat-run cities, sadly. And I'm just giving you, there's far more in there than you have on farms.
Well, new data does show that just a fraction of undocumented immigrants arrested by ICE in recent months have violent histories. According to internal documents from the Defense Department, since October, less than 10% of detained immigrants have convictions of serious crimes like murder or rape. More than 75% had no criminal conviction other than maybe a traffic or immigration-related offense. A new study from San Francisco reveals that mass deportations could cost California $275 billion and decimate some critical industries from agriculture to construction. The Bay Area Council found that undocumented workers generate around 9% of the state's overall economy. A spokesperson from the institute warns that those affected by these deportations are vital to our communities.
26% of the construction sector in the state is undocumented. 61% are immigrants. And at the end of the day, without these workers, GDP generated by these industries would shrink by nearly 16% in the construction industry and 14% in agriculture. So these are not small numbers.
Undocumented immigrants make up 8% of the California workforce. California is the fourth largest economy in the world. President Trump back in the U.S., cutting his G7 trip short as the Israel-Iran conflict hits day 5. President on social media saying that the U.S. has total control over Iran's skies. Earlier, he told reporters on Air Force One that he wants a real end to Iran's nuclear program. He also urged people to immediately evacuate Tehran. The Pentagon says it sent more firepower to Israel, but U.S. troops won't join Israel's offensive. The State Department warns Americans to stay out of Israel. U.S. Senator Alex Padilla talking on the Senate floor after he was detained and taken to the ground at a press conference held by the Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem. That happened last Thursday. Homeland Security spokesperson says the Secret Service thought Padilla might be an attacker. Senator Padilla says he was going to ask Noem for justification for sending the National Guard to Los Angeles.
Or for me. They accompanied me into the press briefing room. And they stood next to me as I stood there for a while, listening. And at one point, the United States Secretary of Homeland Security said that the purpose of federal law enforcement and the purpose of the United States military was to, quote, liberate Los Angeles from our governor and our mayor, to somehow liberate us from the very people that we democratically elected to lead our city and our state. Colleagues, let that fundamentally un-American mission statement sink in. That is not a mission focused on public safety. And that simply is not and cannot be the mission of federal law enforcement and the United States military.
Well, a dozen people are displaced after a fire in San Francisco's Mission Terrace neighborhood that broke out on San Jose Avenue just before 4 this morning. Firefighters say one person was sent to the hospital. No word yet on the cause of that fire. All right, let's get a check on our first alert forecast this Tuesday. Lovely day around the bay and things are warming up a bit. Here's meteorologist Jessica Birch.
Well, it's another warm day for us today here in the Bay Area as we gear up for what's about to be the first day of summer right around the corner on Friday. For the time being, though, here's our spring forecast. We're gearing up for 60s today all along our coastline, 90s off into our inland spots. Look at that temperature contrast that we're noticing all throughout our microclimates. I mean, all the way up into Santa Rosa, too. We have 80s in store for us this afternoon, and that's the case widespread throughout wine country from Napa all the way down to Vallejo with 70s. The more south you go, closer to areas like Oakland, Fremont, and actually today all the way down into the Santa Clara Valley, too. Now, for our friends into the Santa Clara Valley, winds are light, especially this morning we noticed that, but they're going to start kicking up a little bit more into this afternoon. Around lunchtime, we see breezy conditions along our coastal areas, up to around 20-mile-per-hour wind gust anywhere from San Jose all the way up into Fremont into the evening hours tonight. Now, it is going to be a clear evening for us, but once we wake up tomorrow morning, those clouds start rolling back in from offshore. We could even see some coastal drizzle, and then the clouds start to move to the south. We'll see sunnier skies into our Thursday and Friday forecast right around the corner. So let's start off with our inland areas. We just talked about that midweek warm-up. We're going to notice that a lot, anywhere from the Santa Clara Valley up into wine country and, of course, off into the East Bay. Tomorrow, we're going to notice 90s in the forecast for us, sunny skies, low relative humidity. Now, by Thursday, heading into Friday, the first day of summer right around the corner, we're still holding on tight to 80s. We'll see sunny conditions, and that's the case as we head into this weekend's forecast, too. Now, it's warm in our inland spots, but you already saw it on the map. It's a lot cooler for our friends along the coast and just in the heart of the bay, too. San Francisco and Oakland today topping off in the 70s. We'll hold on tight to 70s for another day. We're flirting back and forth with 60s and 70s heading into this weekend with cloudy skies around the corner for the first day of summer.
The Trump administration wants the public's help to reframe the way American history is told at national parks. The National Park Service is putting up signs like these at hundreds of parks and monuments nationwide, and that includes some Bay Area landmarks like Fort Mason and Fort Point. The signs ask visitors to report any so-called negative information about past or living Americans. Our John Ramos spoke with one parks advocate and historian who says they're worried it's an attempt to cover up some of the nation's darkest chapters.
At the Rosie the Riveter Visitor Center, people learn about the contributions of the home front during World War II, but it's honest about the way women and minorities were being treated at the time. That part of the story may be in jeopardy, as President Trump has directed all national parks to carry notices inviting the public to report any, quote, signs or other information that are negative about either past or living Americans, or that fail to emphasize the beauty, grandeur, and abundance of landscapes and other natural features, end quote.
It seems like it's a clear attempt to whitewash history, to erase narratives from the past that they feel don't fit the narratives that they want to see portrayed, and probably most dangerously omit aspects of our history that are really important for us to understand and learn from.
Dennis Arguelles is with the National Parks Conservation Association, a nonprofit that advocates for the national parks. He believes the signs invite people to seek out things about history they would like to erase.
We're seeing this as an attempt to circumnavigate, the authority of the Park Service to tell these stories, to tell accurate history, and to make sure, again, that we learn, particularly from the mistakes of the past.
But isn't the Park Service going along with this?
Well, in our view, the Park Service has no choice. These directives are coming down from the administration, from the Department of Interior, from the Secretary, and in many cases, they don't have the choice but to go along with this.
For example, the sign has reportedly been placed at Port Chicago, the site commemorating a massive explosion during World War II that killed 320 black sailors and the hundreds more who were court-martialed for refusing to return to work. The signs are also located at the Manzanar Relocation Center, where Japanese Americans were interned during World War II. Is it even possible to have a site at Manzanar and not have some kind of negative history assigned to it?
I don't think so. I don't think so. I don't think it's possible. But at the same point in time, the understanding of the things that we have done is not in and of itself a negative process. It is not a process that is designed to make people feel bad about being American. It's a process that is designed to make us better as Americans.
Dr. Nicholas Baham is a professor of ethnic studies at Cal State East Bay. He's particularly disturbed by the fact the Park Service can no longer see the comments that the public is submitting.
I don't know what that kind of system that sets up, other than one that creates a sense of distrust between visitors to the park, American citizens, and people who work at the park.
In his order, President Trump wrote, quote, "This revisionist movement seeks to undermine the remarkable achievements of the United States by casting its founding principles and historical milestones in a negative light," end quote. But Dr. Baham says it is precisely the founding principles of the nation and its struggles to maintain them that has provided the nation with its moral compass.
What happens to this country if we erase the history of enslavement at any of our national park sites, at the plantations that Jefferson or Washington owned? Listen, you know, if you really, this is quite insulting to American people. It assumes that you can't critically evaluate both the good and the bad.
The president's directives also criticizes the removal of various statues and monuments after the Black Lives Matter protests in 2020. He is directing the Park Service to reinstate them wherever possible. Now, John also mentioned the Port Chicago Memorial in his story. We reached out to the Port Chicago Alliance for their thoughts on the new signs. They sent us a statement saying, quote, "We will not allow our history to be erased regardless of orders, policies, or political tides. These histories are not separate or optional. They are central to understanding who we are as a nation." Still ahead here on CBS News Bay Area. Should federal agents be forced to show their faces during immigration raids?
We're really at risk of having effectively secret police in this country.
The new push to unmask the officers and why some say that law enforcement experts say it wouldn't work. Plus, the CHP is grappling with a staffing shortage. We're going to meet the newly graduated officer who says he felt called to put on the badge. And she's a math superstar representing the Bay Area and the Warriors in a national math competition across the country. We're going to meet the 4th grade math baller.
In the Bay Area, a new WNBA franchise is taking flight. Catch this first-in-a-lifetime inaugural season as the Golden State Valkyries play live on KPIX and Pix Plus.
Warm weather in store for us as we head outside today, all throughout our inland areas, with upper 80s and even some low 90s today, all the way over into Antioch. Tomorrow we'll see more 90s in the forecast for us, and then we start to cool down as we creep closer to the weekend, which, by the way, first day of summer on Friday, we're dealing with beautiful weather. We're talking about 80s in store for us throughout our inland spots, sunny skies too, and for our friends along the bay, of course, it'll be a little bit cooler and cloudier, but still beautiful nonetheless, and that's how it's going to be as we head into this weekend with 70s around the corner.
We have been seeing ICE make arrests all over California, including here in the Bay Area. Now, some state lawmakers want those officers to take off any masks they might be wearing and reveal themselves. Our Kevin Coe has more on the new ban they're proposing and why a lot of people in local law enforcement are against it.
As protesters clashed with federal agents making arrests at Concord Immigration Court last Tuesday, our cameras caught this exchange. East Bay attorney Ali Saidi pushing the agents for information.
We're just asking for badge numbers. So we report to the San Francisco Division of the FBI. Okay. You're more than welcome to call the San Francisco Division's office and ask for the folks that are here today. We're just assisting ICE and law enforcement operations.
Ew, shame.
One of many other protesters in the crowd would later chime in, demanding the federal agents identify themselves.
Show us your face, coward!
ICE agents and other law enforcement officials have been seen wearing face coverings during immigration raids, as well as the recent anti-ICE protest in Los Angeles. State Senator Scott Wiener says the secrecy is adding to the fear spreading throughout communities.
It is tearing apart communities. It's causing chaos, and it is a growing problem.
He and State Senator Jesse Arreguín introduced Bill 627, named the No Secret Police Act, aimed at increasing transparency and accountability among law enforcement. If passed, California would be the first state to prohibit state, local, and federal officers from covering their faces while conducting operations. It also requires officers to be identifiable by their uniform, whether it's a name or a badge number.
There are a lot of people who are engaged in these enforcement actions, and we don't know, are they federal, are they contractors, are they local law enforcement?
This is a very normal thing when San Francisco police officers, when you see them walking around, they have their name, they have their badge number, and that is a typical normal practice for law enforcement, and we're seeing that practice start to fade away. We're really at risk of having effectively secret police in this country. Law enforcement that you can't even identify who they are, what agency they're with.
Officers who don't comply could be charged with a misdemeanor.
The feds are just going to ignore it. And then what?
Former FBI agent Jeff Harp says some federal agents need face coverings for tactical purposes.
I mean, that's like saying that you're going to make federal law enforcement use a weapon that's on the California approved list to carry out the duties of their job. They don't do that.
Last week, Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem defended the face coverings as necessary protection for law enforcement.
People have questioned why they have their faces covered. It's for the safety of those individuals or the work that they're doing as far as protecting their identity so they can continue to do investigative work.
Republicans say the mask can prevent law enforcement officers from being doxxed when their home addresses or other personal information is shared online. The bill is also getting pushback from local law enforcement.
Go to Washington. It's not something that the state of California has to deal with.
Lieutenant Tracy McCray, president of the San Francisco Police Officers Association, says it unnecessarily targets local law enforcement agencies who are under state sanctuary laws that prohibit them from participating in immigration operations anyway.
To me, it was hastily written. It was written from a very emotional standpoint, right? Because yes, no one wants to see anyone dragged off the street, right? And you don't know who by what, but we're not doing that, right? That's not the San Francisco Police Department.
San Jose is sweeping a homeless encampment along the Guadalupe River Trail. Over the next 2 weeks, the city plans to clear out dozens of people who have been living in tents along the waterway. That sweep started yesterday. Parks officials say the area along the Guadalupe River from West Taylor Street to Interstate 880 has become unsafe, both for the people living there and the staff trying to help them. One homeless woman told us it is difficult to try to pack up and find somewhere else to live.
Yeah, I think it was a notice. I think it was enough time. Still, even with all that, where are we supposed to go? Take it where? Do what with it? Yeah. We're homeless. Where do they expect us to move all our stuff to?
The city plans to start clearing out another problem spot, Columbus Park, at the end of July. Plans are in the works to transform that park with athletic fields and picnic areas. Like many law enforcement agencies around the Bay Area and the country, the California Highway Patrol is trying to dig itself out of an officer shortage. A state report from last year found that from 2019 to 2023, the number of unfilled CHP jobs rose from 5% to 16%. Just a few weeks ago, the CHP graduated the latest class from its Sacramento Academy. Nearly 30 troopers have been assigned to the Bay Area. Our Suji Noem introduces us to one of them who says he's honored to wear the badge.
Safety always comes first for Sabur Abdul Shakur.
It's an honor. It's not necessarily just a career, it's a calling. You know, you want to help the community, you want a better society.
It's his first few days on the job as a California Highway Patrol trooper. Abdul Shakur just finished his 6-month training at the CHP Academy in Sacramento.
Sabur Abdul Shakur.
And graduated alongside more than 130 troopers in May.
My family moved here when I was pretty young. I was born a refugee in Tajikistan.
He grew up in Sacramento and dreamt about becoming a doctor, but soon learned that path wasn't for him.
To provide the highest level of safety and security for everyone, that's something that I'm very excited to do. And I'm also the first generation law enforcement in my family, so that's definitely something new and something that my family is very proud of me for.
Now, with the fresh uniform, he, along with 27 other new graduates, are assigned to the Golden Gate Division, a great push for the agency to fill in CHP job gaps statewide. CHP Sergeant Andrew Barclay says the pandemic is one of the reasons for the vacancies.
Our academy had to shut down for a while, so that was a period of time where we had officers retiring out, leaving the career over their, after their career, but we weren't backfilling those positions.
In 2023, the agency established a campaign to hire at least 1,000 more officers to their force. And graduating more troopers like Abdul Shakur helps.
No matter if you're in the northernmost or southernmost parts of our state, when you see another CHP officer, you know you've gone through the same thing. You have that camaraderie.
And that camaraderie is something Abdul Shakur is already experiencing, and he is ready to get to work.
Wearing this badge with honor and representing the California Highway Patrol is one of the most honorable things I can do.
Abdul Shakur adds he is grateful to be going down this new road in his life.
Here in the Bay Area, the CHP has done much more than patrol highways. Over the past 2 years, Governor Newsom has sent dozens of officers into Oakland and San Francisco since both of those cities' police departments are understaffed. Still ahead, the San Francisco Gay Men's Chorus is trying to drown out the sounds of uncertainty.
It's clear that they are trying to silence LGBTQ voices, or trying to silence our stories.
How the group is refusing to stay silent after losing federal funding.
what's going on around you.
The San Francisco Gay Men's Chorus has been around since the 70s, but now its mission is in jeopardy. The Trump administration canceled millions of dollars worth of grants for the NEA, or the National Endowment of the Arts. And the Gay Men's Chorus planned to use that funding to support its work in the community. But as Max Darrow shows us, while the cuts are certainly a setback, the chorus is not going quietly.
Good luck, baby, good luck.
Finding his place among this ensemble of voices nearly 10 years ago,
You make a new excuse.
was instrumental in Tom Paulino's journey to find his voice as a gay man.
It's nuanced my understanding of what it meant to be a queer person and how we all come to be who we are and find ourselves here in San Francisco.
He is a member of the San Francisco Gay Men's Chorus. The group has been around since 1978, singing, teaching, and reaching out into Bay Area communities on a mission to promote acceptance, awareness, and inclusivity. But in 2025, his group and its mission has run into a roadblock.
Any time that the pendulum swings towards progress, we always know that there is often a backlash to that, and we're currently living in an enduring period of backlash.
The San Francisco Gay Men's Chorus is one of many organizations that just found out the National Endowment for the Arts, the NEA, decided to terminate a previously awarded federal grant. The rationale, according to the email that Chorus CEO Chris Verdugo received,
The NEA is updating its grant-making policy priorities to focus funding on projects that reflect the nation's rich artistic heritage and creativity as prioritized by the president. That isn't surprising, knowing what we know, but it is devastating, to be honest. It's clear that they are trying to silence LGBTQ voices or trying to silence our stories.
Verdugo says they were expecting around $75,000 to help fund the Rhythm education program.
Rhythm, Reaching Youth Through Music, is a program about empowering not just queer youth, but their allies to be their authentic selves, to be the best selves that they can for themselves and their school systems.
Though the times may be changing, Paulino's resolve is holding strong.
The thing that I've always found a lot of solace and a lot of hope in is when you look around at all of your allies, whether they are queer people or straight people or people of color or women, anybody from a marginalized community that has had any sort of injustice thrust upon them by society or by somebody in power. I always know that those people are the ones that band together eventually to pull our communities and our culture forward.
His eyes are set on upcoming concerts.
To show the world, show our community what love and joy looks like on stage.
Continuing to reach communities, one note at a time.
And you can catch our Pride special coming up on June 29th. That is the same day as the San Francisco Pride Parade. All the action starts at 10 a.m. on Pix Plus, 44, Cable 12, and streaming on the free CBS News app. Coming up in our next half hour here on CBS News Bay Area, President Trump leaving the G7 summit early amid rising tensions between Israel and Iran, the latest on the conflict in the Middle East. Plus, we're going to introduce you to an East Bay woman who's dedicating her life to keeping children safe from online predators.
You're streaming CBS News Bay Area.
Thanks for staying with us this Tuesday. I'm Ann Makovic, and here is another look at some of our news headlines. The fight over the deployment of the National Guard in California heading back to a San Francisco courtroom today. Governor Newsom arguing that President Trump did not have the authority to send troops to Los Angeles during the anti-ICE protests. Last week, a federal judge ordered and agreed President Trump should return control of the Guard to the governor. But then hours later, the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals halted that decision. Today, that three-judge panel is taking up the dispute. A new study from San Francisco reveals that mass deportations would cost California $275 billion and decimate critical industries from agriculture to construction. The Bay Area Council found that undocumented workers generate around 9% of the state's overall economy and make up 8% of the California workforce. President Trump back in the U.S., cutting his G7 trip short as the Israel-Iran conflict hits day 5. The president on social media saying that the U.S. has total control over Iran's skies. He is urging people to immediately evacuate Tehran. The Pentagon sent more firepower to Israel, but says U.S. troops will not join Israel's offensive. The State Department warns Americans to stay out of Israel. All right, let's get another check on our first alert forecast. A lot of sunshine today. Here's meteorologist Jessica Birch.
Well, it's another warm day for us today here in the Bay Area as we gear up for what's about to be the first day of summer right around the corner on Friday. For the time being, though, here's our spring forecast. We're gearing up for 60s today all along our coastline, 90s off into our inland spots. Look at that temperature contrast that we're noticing all throughout our microclimates. I mean, all the way up into Santa Rosa, too. We have 80s in store for us this afternoon, and that's the case widespread throughout wine country from Napa all the way down into Vallejo with 70s. The more south you go, closer to areas like Oakland, Fremont, and actually today all the way down into the Santa Clara Valley, too. Now, for our friends into the Santa Clara Valley, winds are light, especially this morning we noticed that, but they're going to start kicking up a little bit more into this afternoon. Around lunchtime, we see breezy conditions along our coastal areas, up to around 20-mile-per-hour wind gust anywhere from San Jose all the way up into Fremont into the evening hours tonight. Now, it is going to be a clear evening for us, but once we wake up tomorrow morning, those clouds start rolling back in from offshore. We could even see some coastal drizzle, and then the clouds start to move to the south. We'll see sunnier skies into our Thursday and Friday forecast right around the corner. So let's start off with our inland areas. We just talked about that midweek warm-up. We're going to notice that a lot, anywhere from the Santa Clara Valley up into wine country and, of course, off into the East Bay. Tomorrow, we're going to notice 90s in the forecast for us, sunny skies, low relative humidity. Now, by Thursday, heading into Friday, the first day of summer right around the corner, we're still holding on tight to 80s. We'll see sunny conditions, and that's the case as we head into this weekend's forecast, too. Now, it's warm in our inland spots, but you already saw it on the map. It's a lot cooler for our friends along the coast and just in the heart of the Bay, too. San Francisco and Oakland today topping off in the 70s. We'll hold on tight to 70s for another day. We're flirting back and forth with 60s and 70s heading into this weekend with cloudy skies around the corner for the first day of summer.
President Trump has returned to Washington to monitor the latest developments between Israel and Iran. The president left the G7 summit in Canada early as the conflict enters its 5th day. More than 200 people in Iran have been killed so far, and at least 24 have been killed in Israel. Natalie Brandt has the latest from the White House.
A cloud of black smoke billowed over the central Israeli city of Herzliya as Iran and Israel continue to trade strikes, while Israel's air defense is intercepting many of the missiles. Some are getting through. An Iranian missile slammed into a block of apartments Monday.
I'm not prepared. Israelis don't want terror. We want peace.
The Israeli military says it continues to target military sites in Iran. But blasts on Monday also shook Iran state TV during a live broadcast. President Trump on social media urged people in Tehran to evacuate.
I just want people to be safe.
The president, speaking to reporters on Air Force One this morning, said he decided to leave the G7 summit early to monitor and discuss developments in person.
The Pentagon has increased its defensive posture in the region, saying protecting American forces is the top priority. But officials tell CBS News the U.S. is not joining Israel offensively in its military operation.
President Trump said he wants what he called a real end to Iran's nuclear program.
Look at it better than ceasefire. We're not looking for a ceasefire. Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. It's very simple.
At at Iran's border with Iraq. CBS News' Holly Williams spoke to Iranians who are stockpiling food and gas, some saying they believe the Iranian regime is frightened.
In a statement issued late last night, the Group of Seven nations expressed support for Israel's right to defend itself and labeled Iran as a source of instability in the Middle East. Lawmakers in Washington facing a ticking clock to pass President Trump's budget bill. He needs it passed in order to have the money to deliver on his campaign promises. Lawmakers want to cut how much you can deduct on your taxes and impose bigger cuts to Medicaid. If senators can get it passed, that bill then goes back to the House. The president hopes to have it on his desk by the 4th of July. Today, a call to action to help feed families here in the Bay Area and across the country. Leaders from all 5 Bay Area food banks are coming together to urge elected leaders to protect the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, otherwise known as SNAP. The food stamp program helps struggling families put meals on the table. A proposed federal budget bill could slash up to $300 billion from SNAP, effectively eliminating up to 9.5 billion meals a year. Today, food bank leaders are at Second Harvest of Silicon Valley, calling on lawmakers and leaders to not let that happen. Bay Area food banks tell us they're already serving a record number of people while coping with supply chain disruptions, inflation, and rising costs. A federal showdown in New York today could impact the future of hundreds of teenagers and young adults, including some 350 students participating in the Treasure Island Job Corps. In order to save money, the Labor Department is trying to eliminate Job Corps. That is the program that helps low-income young people finish their education and get jobs. The group representing nearly all of the nation's 99 Job Corps centers targeted for closure is suing, calling the shutdown not only illegal but irrational. In the East Bay, one woman is pushing for new state rules to protect children online. She even wrote children's books about the issue. Our Suji Noem has more on her mission to keep kids safe behind the screens.
This is where I work out of, my office.
Monet Brown has dedicated her life to keeping children safe from online predators, even turning her home garage into a makeshift office for her organization, Not Our Kids.
This is Nia, and Nia's purpose is to talk to little girls about not chatting with people that looks like yourself through your cell phone.
She's authored books in both English and Spanish to educate families of the dangers of online predators, while also providing classes on how to protect your children, especially when they're playing games and could be chatting with strangers.
During COVID, the education system gave all our kids computers. They didn't educate us parents on how are they keeping our kids safe through the education.
And that is why she penned the Student Online Safety and Awareness Act that pushes for more safeguards in place for teachers, parents, and children.
Parents be provided a digital footprint daily of all the sites their children go on through the school computer. And I'm also suggesting that children under the age of 12, parents have access to the school email.
There's a long road ahead to get the act to Congress. But Kathy Adams, the head of the Oakland African American Chamber of Commerce, has been at the forefront, sitting down with lawmakers to make it happen.
I've had conversation with our new Congresswoman Latifah Simon. Her staff has been very helpful in supporting us.
They hope to sit down with representatives from Governor Newsom's office. But while they wait, Brown takes her message to families in the community.
This is our Not Our Kids van, and we take this van to Vend.
You may notice this van with this number around the East Bay.
When you call that number, you get me. I will be the one answering.
Her passion to protect children all began when she was a probationary officer for 22 years.
I used to supervise kids that were trafficking and being trafficked. And so what I saw is that children were meeting their predators or victims through cell phones.
And Brown has since been working with foster agencies.
Online predators call you things like pretty and beautiful to get more pictures of you. If a stranger knows too much about you, it makes you easier to find.
And hopes her curriculum of books can be used in school districts.
Can you imagine how it must feel to provide a child a device, and that very same thing is the reason the child is gone?
She vows to protect as many children as she can from the dangers of online predators.
Well, the Silicon Valley Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force includes more than 100 Bay Area agencies. It says last year they got more than 13,000 tips related to reports of child sexual assault that resulted in more than 420 arrests. The agency says it rescued more than 60 child victims of abuse. The Not Our Kids website has tips for parents to help kids with online safety. That includes parents regularly knowing their kids' passwords to monitor their activity. Don't tag your children in public photos to avoid possible tracking from strangers. Turn off location sharing and talk about privacy and sharing information online with your child. Coming up next, high-end vintage clothing that's fancy and fashionable and very much in demand. We are going to introduce you to the man dressing some of the Bay Area's biggest stars.
In the Bay Area, a new WNBA franchise is taking flight. Catch this first-in-a-lifetime inaugural season as the Golden State Valkyries play live on KPIX and Pix Plus.
We have warm weather in store for us as we head outside today all throughout our inland areas with upper 80s and even some low 90s today all the way over into Antioch. Tomorrow we'll see more 90s in the forecast for us, and then we start to cool down as we creep closer to the weekend, which, by the way, first day of summer on Friday, we're dealing with beautiful weather. We're talking about 80s in store for us throughout our inland spots, sunny skies too, and for our friends along the bay, of course, it'll be a little bit cooler and cloudier, but still beautiful nonetheless, and that's how it's going to be as we head into this weekend with 70s around the corner.
Vintage clothing is seeing a surge in popularity, and now a man in San Francisco is at the forefront of the trend. He is bringing his one-of-a-kind finds to the public. He owns Big Time Vintage on Valencia Street, but he also runs a second secret location for his growing list of elite clientele of athletes and entertainers. Len Ramirez went along to see what that VIP vintage collection looks like.
Welcome to the showroom.
He calls it a showroom, but Bong Sigwa doesn't show this to just anyone.
This is more of our higher end vintage for our special VIP clients.
This collection of thousands of pieces of rare vintage clothing is only seen by a select group of clients who are often in the public eye and don't blink at some of the price tags.
This one's kind of cool. Rare shirt, Radiohead band shirt. Pretty rare, and we have this kind of expensive, asking $2,000.
It's the high end of a growing vintage wear industry.
You'd be surprised who's into this stuff.
His love of style and clothing began at an early age and was ironically spurred on by a traumatic event in his family. His brother, seen here wearing a Notre Dame starter jacket, was robbed of his jacket on the street. Bong always wanted one too, but his mom said no.
She told me that your brother had one stolen from him, so we're not going to get you that because it's $150 or whatever the cost was back then.
So when he got older, he began shopping in flea markets and thrift stores, hoping to find a jacket he could buy with his own money. His search not only led him to a jacket, but also paved the way for his future.
It was kind of like maybe the start of it, because it led to being a hobby on the side.
The hobby became a successful eBay vintage store. Then the pandemic hit, and when rents plummeted, he and his partners opened a brick and mortar Big Time Vintage on Valencia Street.
So these two, right?
This store is open to the public, and it's often filled with vintage clothing fans like Jack Yuan.
Every time you walk in, you don't know what you're gonna find compared to like regular stores where they come in seasons. Here is like, there's always something new.
But Bong was inspired to grow even bigger. He noticed that athletes he followed on social media were leaning into vintage looks, so he DM'd them, inviting them to shop with him.
So if a new sports team was in town and they were playing a local, the Giants or the Warriors, I would just DM the whole team. And sometimes I'd get one person to reply.
His client list now reads like a who's who of athletes and entertainers.
Little Yachty, we've gotten Drake.
What began as a childhood wish is now a booming business. And about that starter jacket, he now has them by the dozen. And for him, it was the start of something big.
So Bong says he plans to open a new vintage clothing store in the Haight District that is going to be open to the public next month. Coming up, a Bay Area elementary school student is getting a free trip across the country courtesy of the NBA, but it is not for her basketball skills.
It's like my favorite school subject. It's like
We
fun.
are going to meet the girl going head-to-head against students from around the world in a global math competition. Big matchups this week for the Golden State Valkyries, and you can watch them both on KPIX. All starts today when they visit Paige Beckers and the Dallas Wings. That matchup is going to reunite former UConn teammates Becker and Caitlin Chen. Point guard and fan favorite Chen is returning to the Valkyries to fill an open roster spot. There are reports that their old coach, Gino Arima, may make the trip to watch the Wings and the Valkyries play against each other. And on Thursday, the Valkyries are hosting Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever. You can watch the Valkyries take on the Dallas Wings today on KPIX. Coverage starts at 4:30 this afternoon. A fourth grader from San Francisco is one of only 24 students from around the world headed to the NBA draft in New York City. But she's not going to be there to play basketball. They are competing in the NBA Math Hoops Global Championship. Our Mary Lee sat down with Camden at her elementary school just before her big game.
9 minus 6 would be 3, not 1.
Got it. All right.
Oh, I'm going to Camp Mather this week.
Fourth grader Camden Seiden is the real MVP at her school, Alamo Elementary in San Francisco.
You are going to play against me today.
Camden is the Warriors Math Hoops Global Championship representative. The Golden State Warriors even gave Camden her own personalized jersey. She's representing the Bay Area and the Golden State Warriors at the Learn Fresh 2025 NBA Math Hoops Global Championship in New York.
I'm really excited because, I didn't think that I would be able to get this. I thought it was like a prank, but it was actually real, so I'm really happy about that.
The NBA Math Hoops Global Championship is an international math competition powered by basketball. Camden was selected for her overall growth inside and outside the classroom and her awesome math skills. She loves NBA Math Hoops because it combines her two favorite things, basketball, especially the Warriors, and of course, math.
It's like my favorite school subject. It's fun. I don't know why, but it just is. 6 plus 2 is 8. 6 minus 2 is 4.
Camden and her math teacher, Ms. Annie Wen, played a round of NBA math hoops, showing me how it's done. They rolled the dice, and with the numbers, they quickly added, subtracted, multiplied, and divided those numbers before the shot clock or timer ran out. They also picked their players on the court by looking at the players' stats. Annie said the first time Camden walked into her classroom, she knew Camden was a math star.
I remember the first day of class, Camden basically charged into Math Hoops class after school and was ready to go. And ever since learning about the rules, she's the first to show up, first to really run into the classroom and was like, Miss Wen, I'm ready to play.
Yeah.
And he scores. Good work. So proud, Camden. We know she's going to do great, and go Warriors.
Yeah.
Camden knows everyone here at home is cheering her on as she gets ready for her big game in NYC. With all their love and support, Camden is already a champion.
All right, we are sending good vibes to Camden. Thanks for streaming CBS News Bay Area. I'm Ann Makovic. We're going to be right back with your First Alert forecast and another look at your top stories.